thing on? Checkity check check. All right. This, of course, for the several who watch, who unfortunate to like live better because live is better, you know. Personally think live is better. Hey, we got a peeking eye here. Get out of there. Live chat. The Premier's meeting was today. Now, that was, it was what it was. We'll say that. They were all under unity. They took some questions. It was actually pretty good, to be honest. They took some questions. What is this? They took questions. They also... I didn't see all of it. Hey, we can't have that. Hey, la 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 la. No copyright. They have some, they're talking about some major projects. So just to what you're saying, as everyone knows who's watched this, if there is anyone, it's all to me about this corridor. And leading the north. The big problem is with the housing crisis that's been created by the Liberals. The problem is that there's a lot of tensions in this country about this or that, right? And I think most of it is being exasperated by our politicians, which you'd think that they would at least try for unity, but it seems they're trying to creep off them. And in doing so, they are basically they're going to give the communism will win by continuing this, by allowing money to be able to manipulate policing and push forward agendas of like these people against us. It works for a while. It always has. This isn't like the first time it happened. The Tsars of Russia knew all about this. They do this, and then eventually it just gets. And it's not a good thing. I think capitalism is and to take a U2, hey, I like U2 right now. U2's got a thing out. To take a thing of edge, it's an edge. It is a very you slip on one side of it, you're gone. It's gone. And I think personally right now we've leaned on money, and money is influencing too much without the people power. It's just my opinion, and I'm probably right on it. I've done enough language study, and it just has to do with like you check out all the protests and stuff like that, and we can't seem to get any type of unity in anything. Trump is starting a little bit. But it's not working. Money interests have basically encapsulated the Democrat Party completely in the States. And the Republicans were always about the people with money. So the people are really going to be left out. They are being. The fact Trump is really, it's oddly enough, Trump is actually the guy who's trying, it seems, to bring the factories and the work back. We'll see in 4 years if he tries, if he succeeds in it. I hope he does, because America having more work than people is a good thing for us, because then we get to sell them crap again. Though we were all fully aware that we need to change. Selling 80% of our goods to one country is just a little bit. It's too much, and that has everything to do with what should I say? It has everything to do with us being in the free trade deal. That free trade deal is when we balance it too much. Oh, what? Oh, I gotta do something here. And hey, what are you gonna do, right? We need to have a minister's trade mission, and it seems like it's not happening to start trading our goods. We have a pundit said today or yesterday. Oh, we don't have many free trade deals. Yes, we do. We have the CPTPP, Chile, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, Philippines. There's all these countries, Chile, that we have a free trade deal with. It's unbelievable. And, of course, we're not utilizing this. Okay, it's not being utilized in any shape, way, or form. And there needs to be a big trade mission to change these things. And I think that we need to, first of all, make Canada the place that's the focal point once again of countries, and that has to start with hope. Once you have like silly headlines that the world sees, like there's not many headlines that are repeating in Canada except the housing crisis. Like people must be like, the largest country in the world with land. We could have towns of like of free radical people of the farm freaking city, and no one will care, and it could be hell on earth for these 10 city people, but we don't allow it because we have really poor politics. It's not working. So anyone right-leaning is like, that country's lost. And then second of all, with the opioid crisis, anyone's even just slightly to the left to anyone on the right is looking at that like, are you having more people die in Canada of drug overdose than in the States? It's basically, it doesn't brood well. It doesn't brood well that the place to invest. It's like, well, who is going to work these mines for cheap, decent labor? Where are they going to live? Like, it's the foundation of the country. And these are all internal problems. These aren't. You can't blame the fact that we can't police, or we've decided to not police fentanyl out on any other country. You can't. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to, like the Conservatives, you got to increase the level of whatever against whoever deals this stuff. And second, you have to really, really go hard, laser focus on it. And housing, well, we spent $200-300 billion on consultants. They would have cost get away that $300 billion on consultants just 1 year, and put that $200 billion and transfers and everything. Just say, hey, 1 year, we're going to do something. We're going to put a housing in all these other areas, and they're all going to be for the low-income people, so we can have low-income jobs, so the companies don't have to pay much. We could do these things, and then I believe positive articles, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. These things, if I were to start a religion, it would be start with that. Of course, it's been taken, but I would just encapsulate, start a sect, a Roman Catholic sect, we'll say it like that. Good thoughts, good words, and deeds, and every night tells someone that which of those, one of the 3 laws you broke, right? If you had a bad thought, what was it? Yeah, go see 10 Hail Marys. You had a bad thought. I was like, oh, that freaking idiot. I wish I would have yelled at him. Oh, did you? No, you didn't yell. Okay, 10 Hail Marys. Okay, being silly. But that's the personal thinking of me. And so once you have good thoughts and good words, and that's all news can really do. Well, news can do deeds, but they really aren't supposed to. Once you have those emanating out of the country from the CBC, and it's not horse stuff, it's real. Well, then the country has, you know what I mean? The interest swarms towards it. That's my belief. I think it just is like an automatic P after that. But we've had negative everything. It's like, well, the country's a fall. Why would I bother, right? And the outside interest of a positive outside interest is a good thing. The reason why there's so much investment in China is because they have one after another. If you go there, or Dubai, it's just one after another of a good news story. Israel was getting tons of investment, and then that thing happened October 17th, and then then it all went down. It was a triple flusher. That was awful. And of course, they acted like any democracy would to try to get their people, and they haven't been able to, apparently. So anyway, as usual, I digress. Let's listen to Mark Carney. Mark Carney in trying to make projects, I guess that's the idea, some projects on the paper. We'll see what he has to say, and I'll pause it a couple times just to, I don't know, frustrate you, make you anxiety prone to want to hear more of him and less of me. I don't know.
The federal government at this point considering pipelines a project of national significance? And will you be sidestepping certain environmental requirements outlined in Bill C-69 to fast track such a project?
Well, the first thing to say is, and let me be a bit more specific if I could, because and I will defer to the premiers to add, but the Western premiers and the premiers of the territories met and supported an approach. The Western Corridor, the Western and Arctic Corridor, effectively a corridor between port to port to port, from Pacific Northwest to James Bay to Grays Bay Point, and within that are opportunities in energy, critical minerals, and well beyond. And specifically within energy, opportunities, yes, for an oil pipeline to get to Tidewater. Now, within the broader context of national interest, the interest is in, as mentioned in the press release, decarbonized barrels. So working alongside forms of decarbonization for those barrels. That is absolutely in our interest. It provides diversification of trade partners. It provides the development of new industries. It provides economic activity across the West and into the North. So, yes, there's real potential there. We took up a good deal of our time in discussions and potential to move forward on that. And if further developed, the federal government will look to advance it. En ce qui concerne, c'est plus que les oléoducs, il y a des initiatives qui concernent les corridors pour l'énergie, puis des minéraux critiques, par exemple le corridor de l'Ouest et du Nord. Mais, point final, oui, il y a des possibilités d'avoir des pipelines, des oléoducs pour le pétrole, y compris des initiatives de décarbonisation.
Premier Smith, perhaps you'd like to respond. If I'm understanding correctly, Prime Minister, you are saying that you would fast track a project involving decarbonized oil through pipelines, decarbonized energy. And is that something that, Premier Smith, that you agree with, or do you feel that we need to get the bitumen out of the ground now as soon as possible?
Well, let's call it the grand bargain, that we know that there is a group of oil sands companies that have been advocating for some time for what they call the Pathways Project that would decarbonize the production of their bitumen through the use of carbon capture, utilization, and storage, ultimately using hydroelectric or small modular nuclear to decarbonize, and then direct air capture for the last mile. I think the point I was making to the Prime Minister and my colleagues is that there's lots of ways to decarbonize, but the Pathways Project is an expensive project. It would cost anywhere from $10 to $20 billion to get built. And to make the economic case for that, having more egress with more barrels to be sold to Asia is the way to pay for it. If we had a 1 million barrel a day pipeline going to the Northwest BC coast, that would generate about $20 billion a year in revenues. And so that seems like a pretty good value proposition if both of those projects can proceed at once.
Next question, prochaine question.
Bonjour, M. Carney, Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Vous dites que vous voulez bâtir une nouvelle unité canadienne. Or, l'Assemblée des Premières Nations a émis un communiqué aujourd'hui pour dire que votre projet de loi pour accélérer...
L'Assemblée nationale des Premières Nations, pardon. Et les projets, ça c'est l'acte de consultation à Winnipeg sur tous les sujets.
C'est considéré comme un projet d'intérêt national.
Things. First, there will be review. The projects, we discussed a number of projects today. They're in various stages of preparation. They're in various stages of preparation. I think there's a shared understanding based on our discussion of the main criteria for consideration. I listed them. They're in the communique. I'm not going to repeat them given interest of time. We will work with project proponents on assessing projects relative to those criteria. As those criteria are increasingly well understood, in the national interest, Indigenous participation, example, advancing clean energy, material benefits to Canadians, as those are increasingly well understood, building the resilience of Canada, strategic economy of Canada, autonomy of Canada. More projects will come forward. It's not like the gate doesn't come down all of a sudden. Projects will also fall by the wayside because they won't necessarily meet all this criteria. It's a living list. But what's being clear is what's being put in place, or what is being proposed, will be proposed in legislation, is the ability of the federal government to devote the right resources to these projects, to make quick decisions about those projects that respect our environmental responsibilities, other responsibilities, work with the provinces directly to move forward and to get the country building. That's what we're talking about. Moving the country forward, building the country. I think it says it somewhere behind me. That's what we're here for. That's what we're committed to. That's what the focus of the discussion was today.
Thank you. And on another topic, the communique says the federal government committed to working urgently to remove Chinese tariffs on Canadian agriculture and seafood products. What does that work involve? Is the Canadian government prepared to lift the 100% tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles?
The Canadian government is engaging with its Chinese counterparts, including at the ministerial level, and we'll continue those discussions. They're a top priority for us.
I would just add to that.
120,000 auto worker jobs
to not only secure our market access for products like canola oil and canola meal in the long term, but to secure a more broad trading relationship with China. They are the largest. They are the largest populated country in the world, and likely one of the largest economies in the world as well. The fact that the federal government is working diligently not only to have those tariffs removed, but working diligently to
And one thing you can tell from Premier Mo, he really wants to sell to China. There are a bunch of hungry countries around, but China in particularly does not grow, and it's not their fault. Well, maybe a bit. But they can't grow enough food for their population. They have a lot of desert, sorry. No dessert. No dessert for me. No, just coffee. But they have a lot of desert lands. They're actually doing a very good job. You can check this out. The re-greening of the deserts. They're doing a really good. They have the Gobi Desert. This is a cold desert. It's a beautiful desert, by the way. I hear, but it's got it's very beautiful. But they have a lot of unarable lands. They just can't grow anything but maybe a little bit of wheat. Spring wheat or winter wheat, and it's very sparse. So they cannot grow enough food. So egg, as they like to, you're gonna hear him say it, egg. Agricultural stuff is huge in Saskatchewan, and they're having issues with their soy crush plants, selling it to China. So this is an issue that he needs to work on because he's a premier of a province that is the size of bigger than most countries, but it has huge production of egg and this agricultural goods. Like I said, they're so in demand over there. Like India, they grow a lot of food in India, and a lot of people still live close to the land and stuff. There's a lot of food being grown there, so it's not as good of a climate. The Middle East is a good spot. So Africa right now, we should be if anyone in his team is listening, because Ukraine sold the majority of their, it's a different type of wheat, but they sold their wheat to Africa. That was a lot of where it was going. And they're not doing that as much lately, right? So there's a market to jump in right now in the African market. But also, of course, it's just the Asian market is just growing so huge, and it's not that necessarily always about the population growth. It's the disposable income, and the more disposable income you have, the more stores you have, and the more people just throw out food. It's basically and eat more, right? We've gotten a lot bigger. If you look at people in the 1900s, 1901 to now, we're just bigger. We eat more. Get bigger, and of course, working out techniques. But on an average person. So there is that over happening there, and I think we need to have a huge. They've been doing really good. The Saskatchewan government's been doing. They have a bunch of offices in the Middle East and stuff like that, and Asia, to try to get their products at other places. But I think it needs to have come from a federal level, like the Federal Trade Mission, to identify more of these things, because it is how it is, and it's something that diversification of sales is a good idea, and jumping on opportunities that helps us. And the international agencies we have are mostly in the federal government. It's actually kudos, hats off to Saskatchewan for even having offices in India. I don't know if it's Dubai or Qatar, but in the Middle East, and I think the Philippines as well. They have a bunch of these trade offices. And with this free trade deal we got over there, hey, hungry Asians, they can they can get some of our agricultural goods.
To broaden that relationship into the future, I think is precisely what we need to do as a nation.
That's a major priority for Manitoba as well, and I think it speaks to the fact that we're trying to solve this complex multivariable equation. We have the Trump administration on one side, and then we have an ascendant People's Republic of China on the other side. A nation of our size, which has great people, abundant natural resources. The element to be able to solve that equation that confronts us is unity. It's being able to work together.
Yeah, and Wab Canoe has I have him in my the wedding. I put a thing with a bubble thing around him. I made it as I don't know. I tried to be funny with the thing, and I think it was good. Wab Canoe is the premier with 66% approval rating. He has the highest approval rating of any politician in Canada right now. And outside of his province, it's very high. He's NDP. He's Native American. I'm not sure the whole background to it. He he has hair, right? So he follows right? He follows a little bit. He's no chief or anything like that. Anyway, to me, it's a bonus. It's a bonus, right? Because reconciliation does start with leadership, right? And if you have a leader, I think I trust a Native American federal guy to deal with it more. I hope that someone, I don't care what they have to do, bribe him with cash. Extort him. Of course, I'm being facetious, joking. Anything. Get him to run for the federal NDP. I don't know. I think they're doing it too fast if they start doing it now. They haven't even done an after-action review about what the heck happened, where they should lead, or anything like that. I think you have to do a very robust thing, like I try to do. I did every night. I don't always remember because I'm an idiot. But I try to think about. He looks angry, so I don't want him to be angry
I think
at me.
that this meeting here today of the First Ministers representing Canadians from different walks of life is an important step forward for us being able to have that showdown.
All right, he's smiling. Okay, so good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, and not being a sprinter. This is the key, I think, about having good thoughts, good words, and deeds. And this is my little piece of thing. There's no one here. It's just me and you talking. Me talking to you. Leave a comment, subscribe. But if you're running and allowing the world around you to get yourself distracted and stuff like that, you're most likely to let slip a bad thought. Someone, while you're bouncing around, oh, what the hell, but I need to find and rush. No, you don't need to. It's all relative. It's all your relatives that are fucking you over. But what it is hey, I need to calm down. If you get like that, you're like, first of all, I need to calm down. Because when you're all like that, someone can interject on you while you're in the middle of a fluster looking for something, say, and then you'll have a bad thought. They can say something to you that's negative, and you don't have your shield up. Your white shield is down. And because you're in your fluster, boom, a bad thought can get through. Then, also, if in a fluster, we all know this, you can let bad words get through. And I don't mean just a curse word. I mean saying stuff you really, after you said it, you wish you could catch those words. Good thoughts and your good words. And if you're not flustered and you haven't done any of those two things, if you haven't had a bad thought, a negative thought, we'll say, a negative words, the chances of you doing a negative action are very, very slim. One leads to another. So the first key is don't be susceptible. Keep up your shield. be cool, calm, collected, and move this forward. This guy, Wab Kinew, emanates this. This is why I went on to this big. If I were to start a sect, Roman Catholic sect, it would be these based on that. And he is calm, he's cool, he's collected, he's educated class, and his wife is also a doctor, so he's got a really good advisor every night, right? A lot of respect for, I like doctors and respect for doctors. I complain about, I let a lot of bad words about them go through, but I fail on the good thoughts and good words more than most. Talking politics, letting myself run. At least I'm aware of it now. But he's an outstanding politician that is deft. He's agile with all this stuff. He was out there begging, pleading for more water planes, and he was begging, pleading for the people to open up their homes to help people that are like Flin Flon was evacuated and stuff like that. There was pictures of him. They caught him opening up, doing cots. These wonderful army cots or whatever. I think they were actually civilian ones, but he was doing it physical work. And there's a good photo of it. This guy has such high rating, 66%, because he puts his hand in the ice water instead of having his minions do it. And he has a good demeanor, right? I think I just can't say enough quality about this. And then Manitoba, what is he pushing? Churchill. What did he do automatically? When the crisis happened, from the Trump crisis, we'll call it, right? Him doing the tariffs, him saying he didn't cancel, he let slip, he let finish, work out a deal selling power to Minnesota, and he says, hey, I believe it's Minnesota, but it's 500 million megawatts, but it's quite a bit of power. It's enough to power the Arctic, the North, like all three territories, pretty much. And so, mostly, okay? And he said, well, how about I'll have a nation-building project. I have all this power available, and they have other power available if they were to build, but this is power right now. And he's like, well, hey, he's letting the government know, if you want to do some nation-building projects, we have the power ready right now. I also want to do, he also said he wants, not me, sorry, he said he also wanted to do the Churchill port, the port of Churchill. Now, there's other things that they're talking about. I believe that should be a hell of a lot more, but he's the one who brought it forward. And it's nation building. If we have threats from outside, we have to weave our country together. We already know this. This isn't like, you don't have to have any sense to realize this, because it's already been done. This guy that the left hates, John A. Macdonald, who had Native American friends, by the way, so I think, at least that's the way I seen him as, is that I thought he was a Native American friend, a friend to the Native Americans. He was ahead of his time, and when you read some of the words he said about it, he was in for the those schools, but the idea of the schools and what happened, I think, were different. And they were different times, right? There was an idea of them being a wonderful place, but they fell short, right? But the lofty goal of weaving people in together was great. It just didn't work out. It didn't work out in everyone's best interest, needless to say. But putting all that aside, John A. Macdonald did do one thing in between drinks. And bribery and coercion and a bunch of other shady, good political things. He got the steel from one end to the other to unify Canada. Because at the time, if everyone realizes, the states, just like today, were looking to grab pieces and sow division and grab pieces of us, as states and whatever, right? And and then take the resources and then a generation later, then weave them in. But first, this always happens. First, the larger majority pillages in a economic way, and then they weaved it. It happens to all this. It happened to all the states. It just happened, But we need to do it again. That's it. This corridor, and look, like this corridor. How do you weave the country together? Well, you have to weave it together through roads. This could be green power grid. Only these red lines, just a green power grid by the federal government, and then maybe places where allow places where companies and people, whatever, want to invest, allow the pipelines, and then the roads where feasible, like a road from Churchill to the through Ontario and Quebec, all the way along the coast to Nova Scotia. That leg that could work. That definitely here. I'll let my you can look at my cursor so you can see. But definitely, to all the way to Nova Scotia, along the coast of New Brunswick, where there isn't the highway now because there's the one and it goes in the center basically. But go along the coast, Gaspé kind of area there, along the coast, and then maybe a little stretch along Labrador, because there's a super power grid. I don't know. I'm not saying exactly which way, but this could how do you weave the country together? Well, you get the green power, the hydro, and all this stuff, at least in a corridor, and roads where it's feasible to weave the country together. There's a lot of places up there, the towns that you fly in, fly out, and we probably won't need roads in 50 years. But for the next 50 years, roads will be really useful. Will be pretty useful. And this will basically, in my opinion, it'll set Canada up. And, of course, you'll have to do things to save the wildlife, and you have to put tree breaks and stuff like that so the predators can't go, from one house to, one straight run. It helps that we know this, So there's things that has to be done. But this is a possibility of, an outstanding weaving our country. And then there's, next time any prime president or any other person says anything, we're like, yeah, whatever. We have the northern route. You're taking our country, and it ain't over yet. America is definitely, on the hunt. Trump is just usually when you have someone extreme, they're usually a little bit more. The next guy will be right now he's at 70%. The next guy will be 50%, but he'll be 50%. It won't be like zero. It doesn't happen like that. That's what we call progress. There's a thing that, whether it's good, bad, or and it's very almost impossible to stop progress, as the saying goes, right? You can't stop progress, and that's not words I like to use. Okay, so I did my long enough thing. I'm just talking because, hey, this is all I got. I got some opinions, and I want to keep this country together. And this Wab Kinew guy is the guy. They got to be someone's got to be getting him to be the leader of the federal party, and but they have to give him another year in Manitoba to get things done. So he's got a record. That's why I'm saying Manitoba. I mean Ebby, he's pretty good too for BC though. Will he be good? Not good. Will he be votable nationally as much as Wab is? I don't know. I really don't. I like him. I think he's a good politician. I think he's very good at his job. I'm just saying, but I think that they need to wait. And the NDP has a problem right now of 4 or 5 seats, and they need to just sit back. Just need to take a cup. Let the premiers jockey to be the leader of the federal party, and they need to start saving money. And while those 7 seats they need to get to the tent cities. They need to get into the rehab places, into homeless shelters. That's where the NDP's left. Back in the day, union jobs were the low. That was the lowest. You're the lowest guy. You're the low guy. You got a union job. It's not that. It wasn't great. It wasn't like people are And then as time went on, it was you got in the union, good. But it wasn't I'm a lawyer, or you're a doctor, or you're an engineer. You're at least got some, And as time has gone on, it's almost the 100,000 plus job. It's almost the jobs above where the NDP is. Not all of it, but a lot of the union jobs now. They're they're not NDP people, because there's 45 or 40% of the population that makes less money than them. They're at an elevated place. There's no room for them. At the core, okay, of course you need the union people, right? You need that person job. You need the lawyers and the educated class to buy in as well. But they also need to have the numbers, and the numbers right now, population numbers, there's the ones that are dying of addiction, or they're close, or they're whatever, what have you. I was really surprised. I went to a building, union guy, okay? I'm a union guy. I was making decent money, living that kind of thing. And there wasn't many people in the places that I hung, right? There were people, and it wasn't just me. It was just there wasn't many people. And then I kind of thought about it. Like, yeah, well, I guess there's no one around me, like, of my friends that were making above board the same as I was. And I'm thinking, just, you know what I mean? Just a tradesman, right? And then I went to go work in buildings, lower income building, and they were full of people. Like, cha-ching. It was a eureka moment. I was like, not in the bath, mind you, and I didn't run down the street, but it was a eureka moment. That's where all the people are. These people with tattoos and uncouth, just like me, and complete poor eating habits, and no suppers and stuff like that. It had to do with money, right? And they weren't eating steak 3 times a week or whatever, like the union guys. And that's where the people are, and that's where the NDP needs to be. They need to get that base, because I'll tell you one other thing. This is the last point. Just you and me listening. At least that's according to what my numbers say. The last thing is that they need to grab the people. Once you get people in a room, it doesn't matter what kind of people, if they're good, bad, or ugly people, they're just chattering in a room, doing their thing. You know what people in a room do? Just put windows on that, and it will draw more people. That's it. It's just we're sheep. We're sheeple. There's no changing that. And you'll get more lawyers go into that room. You'll get more doctors. You'll get more insurance salesmen. You'll get more taxi guys. You'll get more union guys in a packed room. But if you have a room full of pure people, they're the purest, the best people. You know how many people go? No. If there's a dozen of you, people will look and they'll be like, yeah, well, it's not for me. But they will just not even use their brain anymore and just like, oh, look, there's people. That's the problem, what I think, with a lot of areas with this, and where we've been going with this algorithm that's been isolating us in all these perfect sections, and why, like, Joe Rogan is so popular. He just talks. What does Joe Rogan talk about? Frickin' everything. He talks about, like, anything any specialized group is interested in. Just come on in the room, right? Yeah, whatever, and then he makes jokes. Is he the perfect pinnacle of this? No, absolutely not. But he's emulating that. Everyone's invited in the room. What do you mean? And he's a big fighter guy, and no one's going to screw with him, so he can invite people in the room. Oh, yeah, come on in the room. You make trouble, I'll make trouble for you. That's kind of the attitude that why I think he can harbor the people coming in. Well, majority of society is like, no, you're not pure enough. Oh, and at first I was exactly it. I was like, well, this person obviously hasn't done their laundry the way I do. Very, very fastidiously. I wear once and then it goes in the laundry. Well, I can smell if you have it. And I'm just saying. I'm like, or you got, and you're having not just dirty work clothes. That's cool. But I was a little bit like hoity-snoity. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm just a tradesman. Get off of your horse, you yacht. That's what I have to say to myself. And I think, and I went through it, so I believe that the parties also have to go through. That's when I got into politics, is when I came to the conclusion that the majority of people went from the 6 o'clock, having a working man, went into the pubs. This is where we went. This is where we congregated. That's where we were. That's where the majority of the people were. And then it became sparse of that type of person, but more of those people individually in their own apartment buildings and apartment blocks that were lower income. That's what we've done. We've gone from that to divided and into lower blocks. Like these, anyone who's a lower partner in rental will be fully aware of this. They're like, they have tons of people. They have no problem. When they have a room available, this was what surprised me. There was a room available. I remember, when I was looking for apartments and stuff, they were like, yeah, we've had it for a few months. You could tell the dust, right? It had been, But when these rooms came available, that were like these cheaper rooms, it was like 12 people, like literally. Oh yeah. And then weeks after, we're like, I heard about it. Like, no, man, it's taken. Seats taken. So this is that's my thinking on it. Okay. Sorry if you don't like it.
With China, have that showdown with the Trump administration, and make sure that you and your jobs come out on top. Oui, certainement. Cet défi avec la Chine, puis avec M. Trump, c'était un très grand défi pour le Manitoba et puis tout le Canada. Alors, en tant qu'un pays avec un peuple merveilleux, avec beaucoup de ressources naturelles, les choses qu'on doit se souvenir pour diriger contre ces défis, c'est un rassemblement, une unité nationale. Et cette rencontre aujourd'hui était une étape très importante pour avancer ce projet.
Next question.
Stephanie Taylor, The National Post. Prime Minister, why are you not prepared today to announce or name any specific project that you've heard from premiers that would be fast-tracked under this new approvals process?
Look, the first thing, Stephanie, I can give you, if I may, lots of examples of those projects, which range from Grays Bay Port and Road, Churchill Port, the Pathways Alliance, Northwest Coast Oil Pipeline, Intertie Bay Nord, Ring of Fire, La Fosse du Labrador, Contrecoeur Terminal, and on. Now I've offended some of my members because we don't have enough time for me to go through all the projects. There is a long list of projects that bring the country together, diversify our markets, make us more resilient, create good jobs and growth, have very good prospects of Indigenous partnerships and beyond. Okay, so they're there. The purpose of the meeting today was to catalyze bringing projects up, getting a shared understanding of what would constitute a project of national interest, explaining the new federal approach to this, building consensus and unity, as Premier Canoe just said, and this, if I may, this is a unified group. This is a group that wants to work together and will work together to build our country. And now we move quickly from this position. The job of the federal government, our first job, is legislation to give ourselves the ability to make this a reality. But we will very quickly move into the summer to refine that list from the list we have. I think as more private proponents become aware of the opportunity here, we're gonna see more projects coming forward.
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to be very blunt here. This has been the best meeting we've had in 10 years. Simple. Best meeting I've had in 7 years. And there was no expectations that the Prime Minister was going to come out and say, you get that project, you get that project. It was a great discussion. Now, we were all talking. Now it's time to put it into action. All of us are responsible. But I thought it was an incredible meeting, great communication, great collaboration, and we all walked out of that room united. And that's the most important thing. Now the Prime Minister is going to go to work, get the legislation passed, and we'll divvy it up. I described him today as Santa Claus. He's coming, and his sled was full of all sorts of stuff. Now he's taking off back to the North Pole. He's going to sort it out, and then he's going to call us. So, and we're building short of Santa Claus is my big belly. I got to loan it to him.
Well,
and we're building a port at the North Pole, I think.
That's right, absolutely. And critical minerals up in the North Pole.
And if I could build on the example that Doug gave, I think one of the critical pieces here is the unity. So while on Christmas morning at my house, my kids are pretty excited and not fighting each other over their toys, New Brunswick is really excited to see the Eastern Energy Partnership as a priority project. And we are in full support of our colleagues in the West advancing the Western and Arctic Corridor. And we're not going to be in competition with each other because we're in support of every province here advancing their interests in a way that we're all aware of, that we're all supportive of, and that demonstrates to Canadian the unity among Canadian premiers, the strength around this table, that we're all on the same page to build an economy that serves every Canadian from each of our positions in each of our provinces.
Sorry, I want to just thank the Prime Minister on behalf of Northern Premiers. It's been a long time at the table asking for a focus on Arctic security and being able to walk in here. We've always had the support of all our colleagues. Doug, as the chair of COF, has always been right behind us, Premier Ford. But being here today and actually seeing action put to that, and also for the nation building projects in all three territories, having that opportunity to
I forgot about this guy earlier when I stepped down. Yukon. He's actually outstanding. The outstanding. I don't want to make a mess of his name. He has like more of business background, Indian heritage, but from the Yukon, and I thought he was outstanding. And unfortunately, he's stepping down. He's not going to run. Ranj Pillai. Pillai. I just, Raj. He's really, really good. He was also in my thing as like really smart and business oriented. He's been promoting this critical minerals in his in the Yukon, and it's such a small population. I think there's a really good answer to this housing crisis. There's not, like it or not, it seems to be unwanted people of the society, and that's who's getting in the tent. You know what I mean? You're just not going to get the great job. Well, the Arctic, the North, I believe would be more open to having large city, and just like Australia was populated by by a lot of political prisoners, mostly, really, but all kinds of, you know what I mean? And it's one of the best places in the world right now. So I think that's the same idea. Is Churchill is one place I think should start, but Whitehorse and Yellowknife, whatever, maybe name changing. Well, Whitehorse sounds good, but Yellow, I never liked the name of that. But definitely having a awesome. Of course, the people up there get to the people that have been there for 10 years get to vote it. But I think he's done an awesome job up there, really promoting the province and doing it. The problem is he's fighting against the wind, and it doesn't seem to be like projects getting available and approved, and the money and all these things are so slow. And there's gold up there too. But I think first thing that should happen up there is northern building. Of course, like in the city, like not. I'm not talking about suburbia builds and all these people get a little lovely. No. Building concrete buildings in their town, in their city, and to, you know what I mean, create as at the same time opening up projects and stuff like that to help alleviate the crisis, the housing crisis. Big thing. And at the same time approving northern projects. I don't know. I just believe opening up the north, reconciliation and opening up the north should be how we keep this country together. It's the second stage of unifying the country. The first one was just one simple train. Those were easier, simpler times, folks. Or I don't even know if there's anyone here. It was easier, simpler times. Now, it's got to be a very thick weave, but they all have to come to the same thing, one binding thread for the nation. So there's Ron
have support behind them and understanding that they are a key point within our strategy for Arctic security. I just want to say thank you, and what a refreshing opportunity to be at a meeting like this today.
There are differences of opinion around the table as to whether an oil pipeline should be a candidate to be fast-tracked without a proponent pitching one. Prime Minister, can you clarify, is the federal government prepared to say it's willing to fast-track an oil pipeline without a private sector proponent saying it wants to build one?
Look, it's not a decision. It's not a decision we have to make today. I think what's clear, be absolutely clear. We're saying, and this is consistent. This is consistent with the agreement we had as First Ministers back in March when we met in Ottawa. When we talked about energy and trade corridors. It had a little less focus because we hadn't translated that into a legislative initiative and more specifics about projects. There is an ability to build that energy infrastructure, that oil pipeline. I'm going to refer to my earlier answer and to Premier Smith's answer moments ago about a grand bargain. Decarbonizing the barrels, various ways to do that. I agree with her, and so the opportunity is there. The market is there in Asia. It is within. Last point. It is within a bigger framework that the Western premiers and the territorial premiers have come up with, which is.
Okay, so before I let myself or anything get ahead, the idea that there's going to be a pipeline approval through Quebec is such a silly, and to go to Nova Scotia and all that. Nova Scotia has their own oil. Newfoundland is starting to produce their own oil. All the Newfies that worked in the oil patch, hey, they thought, hey, we'll have the oil patch out here. There's oil on the East Coast now that they're pulling it out now that's way out in the middle of the ocean. So the idea that they're going to put a pipeline from one to the other, okay, if there's someone who wants to put that forward through money, I don't think that, first of all, there'll be someone who wants to put it forward because it kind of doesn't make sense anymore, especially with Newfoundland and I think Nova Scotia. But it's, like I said, like Sable Island and stuff, there's just no need to have oil from Alberta out there, okay? There isn't a need, right? For our own country. For export, yeah. But you're like this buy-in by Quebec wanting to have like more oil production, that lasted about a month, and that month was last month, or about maybe about 3 months, and it ended last month. It's over. The buy-in of that and oil producing out of Quebec just doesn't want it, and there's the main reason really is they have hydro, and so they're just totally into the clean power thing because their whole province runs basically on hydro, and it works better. They have cheaper power than anyone else. They make money. They have an industry, the aluminum smelting industry, based off of their cheap power. It runs off of rain. Like, rain is free, folks. Inputs, outputs. I don't know, everyone's like, nuclear. Nuclear also is like has about maximum 50 years left, okay? And reactors like 20, 30 years before they have to be rebuilt. Major rebuilding, okay? So this isn't... Yes, okay, the small modular reactors are the big push right now because they can go up quick. And they know in 20 years, first of all, what's going to happen when these commercial companies, just like the oil patch, what happens when the oil patch, when it runs out of oil, all of a sudden the company goes bust, and then there's a derelict oil derrick thing and oil line, and then they just abandon it because the company's gone. What happens when these small commercial companies close up? And I'm not against it. I'm just saying, why don't we like really help produce it and then put it in other countries where we don't need it? It just makes no sense to me that we're creating a country and we think, oh, we're going to produce oil and we're going to put pipelines across and we're going to do nuclear everywhere. We know it's going to be problems. We know it's problems down the pipe. And in 50 years, fusion is going to be the thing. And that's like at the worst case scenario, 50 years. It's going to be faster than that. They're extrapolating human mind on it. Well, we're about to have within 3 years maximum AI, super brains. So in 20, 30 years, we're going to have fusion reactors, all of these old power sources. You know, hydro will still work because it works on rain. It's very low maintenance to spin turbines. And as long as the rain keeps flowing, and it doesn't harm the environment, it doesn't have low inputs, low outputs. It did for a while have fish population problems, but now they have fish streams, fish roads, we'll call them. So they figured that one out, right? It's just really simple. It looks simple. It took a genius to come up with it, but it looks very simple. And it works. They don't have any chutes and all these stupid things that you've seen that were in California. All kinds of ideas. And they were great ideas. They worked. But they have a way of making water that very minimal amount of water that can let the fish traverse it. It's just a brilliant idea. So this is the thing, is why I keep saying with power, it's like the government. Okay, if the private companies want to put money into something, okay, you know what I mean. But when we're talking about when the federal government has like 500 angles pulling at us, I don't think we should be putting money into things that don't make sense 20 years from now. And these are 20, 30-year projects. You know, hydro works. Hydro's cheap. Fusion reactors should be talking about what are we going to do with the fusion reactor? Why don't we have something we're starting here? like up north of Ottawa, where they have the nuclear training and stuff like that. That's, to me, what we really should do. Because it's coming anyway, and we already know. It's just kind of fusion is what the energy the sun works on. It's when we look around for the most power that we can get out of something, it's the sun, and the sun is like sun, you know what I mean, the planet or whatever it is. That is the most energy that we've ever seen. Okay, maybe black holes have more, but it's a negative. Maybe exploding suns have more energy. But you know, regular, normal stuff of power that we out in the universe is the sun. And we're on the cusp of figuring it out, okay? You can check it on iter.com, iter.com in France. That's it, it's a Latin word. And it's coming. We need to think, how is Canada going to do, if you're going to do big nation-building projects, to me, is like, why are you going to build something that's 20 years is going to be a major, we're going to have to put billions into, and in 20 years is going to be bunk, and no one is going to want to destroy things and have nuclear waste for 100,000 years, when fusion, you can put two things together, and it's a quality material on the other end of it. Not a negative, like fusing two fluoride with chlorine or something. I can't remember what it is exactly, but it actually makes something useful, right? Fusing two things together, two elements and stuff like that. That is the future. But this idea, like this keeping this closed ideas of the things are happening really, really, really fast. And I'm just a big proponent on keeping up with the times. And if we're going to put government money into something, we have to think smarter than, oh well, that was the past, 1911. We're gonna disunify the country, because this is gonna, Alberta's gonna separate, be their own country. 20 years they'll be rich. They'll pump out tons of oil. It'll be just an oil glut. You know, they'll be the smokers, right? And then fusion will come out, and power will be like cheap, like cheap. They're talking one fusion would like and power Europe, one plant, Europe. So it makes sense now, before we're beaming energy, but using the transmission lines will mostly be used. To use the hydro, start to weave the country together, and do that now instead of talk about pushing Quebecers, and I'm not a Quebecer, but I've talked to enough to know the sentiment. It's like when I worked in the oil industry, and oh my God, they were not happy with me at all. You know, they're like, why would you work? Like, anyway, I'm not gonna. They did, and then the arguments I had, I believe myself to be a good bullstuffer, and but they beat me, and I was like, ooh. Yeah, you know, I'm not going to go into the full details of it as esoteric talk, but like it's like, yeah, you know, why would we do that when we just block a river and we have more power than you? We have so much excess. We have cheap aluminum, you know, it works on water and it doesn't pollute the water.
The Western Arctic corridor, so it's much more than that, and sometimes the discussion is reduced far too much to one type of project. It's important, but the range of what we're discussing is much, much bigger than that. And if I can just finish with this is the point for the country. Our ambitions must be bigger and broader, and what we heard today, what we discussed today, was entirely consistent with that. Big, broad ambitions consistent with having the strongest economy in the G7 and being an energy superpower. Thank you.
We'll have time. And what I heard from the Prime Minister is that, it's up to us to find the proponent, I think. I think if there's some certainty that a process is going to be successful in a reasonable period of time, a 2-year window, I think that there will be a proponent that will step forward. My view would be that...
I'm going to cut her off. Manitoba is producing oil. Saskatchewan's producing oil. Alberta's producing oil. All three oil-producing states, provinces, oh my goodness gracious. All three are producing oil. All three will be totally copacetic with putting a port in Churchill, and they just got to do a little line. That's, to me, is it. That's the answer. You get to a ship, it gets to any market in the world. Now, they also have another problem. They need an icebreaker, $40 billion. $40 billion to get an icebreaker all year round. Alberta can sell all the oil. There's nothing. All they need to do is really to get it to Tidewater. And so there's the Trans Mountain Pipeline selling its max capacity. They need another twin line beside it, maybe twin it. Not probably going to happen. But those three provinces going that way, not a problem. British Columbia is not they have it up in St. John. You got some oil producing and stuff like that, the northern part but they're not, they don't want to see the pipelines. The majority of the populace, and fighting for it, it's just like, you know what? Fight fight the battles you're guaranteed to win. We got Wob, I want to call him Wobby. I don't know if that would sound bad. So it's Wob, Sir Wob, Canoe, has signaled, I got the power. I will sell you the power. And I want your oil pipeline to come to help build my city in Churchill, my port in Churchill. So there's a project that everybody's on board. You don't have no political battle. You don't have to talk about disunity to push a project. It ain't going to happen anyway. We already know that the 51st state, it'll fizzle out within 5 minutes of getting close. And I'm talking 15% of the people. It won't work. It was like the same thing as someone who's got 5% of the vote saying, I'm going to be prime minister, vote for me. It's like most people are like, whatever. But the three provinces to Tidewater, that's it. That's all she should be pushing for. And then she won't get the political backlash. As soon as she starts talking about going through Quebec as if Quebec, once it really comes down, and Legault, you can just look at his face when he talks, he looks down and he's quiet because he knows where the sentiment was last month. But I'll tell you, I got my finger in the wind, and it's blowing of like no wind, there ain't no wind behind the sails of a pipeline going through all the way through Quebec. And all I have to do is put oil spill this, oil spill that, and one newspaper of some green-leaning son of a, and it's done. But this is the last time I'll say it. But the Manitoba thing, everyone's for it. She could get billions of dollars, tons of money. Focus, I believe, my opinion, and of course, obviously, it means not much. There's just you and me here. Putting all of her energy, forget about the disunity thing. It isn't working. It makes you look like a weak politician. Forget about, and I think she's a very good politician. I'm not trying to, and she's in her face. It's probably how she thinks about me. She's a very good politician. She's good. She's very agile, speaking and convincing. She's just, personally, I think she's running into bad arguments. Her advisors are poor advisors. There's too much YouTube watching, thinking what's going on, and it ain't going to work. It's going to do a problem for her. But a positive thing is get that pipeline to Wob Canoe, who is like cheering on the other end for it. He's like, yeah, everyone in Manitoba. There's no negative reviews in Manitoba. No newspapers producing papers against the oil that they have found in their south. There's no any of that in Saskatchewan. Frick, Saskatchewan is like, when is it coming? We don't care if it goes. Putting it through the lake, yeah, is it quicker? Yeah, put it through the lake. If it goes faster. That's the mentality there. And Alberta, obviously, is like pipeline when. So that is where they need to focus. If you want pipelines, but talking about an argument about bringing in Quebec, dividing I think it's as poor taste as I am.
Assignment if government has to build another pipeline. That will demonstrate to us that we didn't create the conditions for private investment to come to the table. So I'm encouraged that the Prime Minister is prepared to do a two-track process. Let's identify a project and a window and work towards identifying some of the barriers that have been in the way of the current regulatory process, at the same time as working on fixing the regulatory process so that it makes future projects easier to approve. I think the reason we have to have a fast track is because we know that there are barriers. And so if we can kickstart it and have a dual track, I think that we may be able to achieve the outcome. We'll know in a couple of months' time, hopefully, whether this new approach is going to work. But I think it's worth giving it a try.
And all of that is true, there are very much indirect benefits because, as the Prime Minister said, the corridor, port to port, and then maybe to an Arctic port, a Grays Bay corridor, is significant for so many other projects. It would go in the vicinity of 2 hydroelectric facilities and allow us to actually start to advance additional power into industries that are creating wealth and creating jobs in northern parts of our provinces. We have, potash mines that are expanding and doubling production. The largest potash mine in the world is being constructed in our province as we speak. We are going to need more rail capacity for other products, agri-food products, which are the most sustainable in the world. Our potash, which we are going to produce more of and need to get it out to countries around the world through a Pacific port or an Atlantic port. And so as we move through this discussion, the opportunities around enhancing ports like Kitimat and Prince Rupert are, tremendously valuable, not just for the discussion around energy products and oil specifically, but much beyond that to hydroelectric power, empowering the industries that are creating wealth, additional port capacity for products that we may produce in Saskatchewan, but many other provinces as well. And so this is I would say, a generational opportunity for us to achieve some of the aspirations the Prime Minister has put forward, but a generational opportunity for Canadians as well. And I really look forward to where these discussions go over the course of the next number.
Yeah.
Number of months.
Premier Mo, 1,000%, he didn't want to hear it either. 1,000% agree with what he just said there. It's, like you said, it's a nation-building project. Getting it to the Arctic Grays Bay, we'll see how that goes. But having these things, that is what makes a lot of sense. I think Churchill, Grays Bay, whatever. But Churchill especially because it's wanted all the way through. It's fairly easy pipeline. But like they said, and I believe that there will be money that it'll want to go through those areas. I'm not sure everything entailed to that, but it makes sense. But like you said, it's potash. Potash is right now a great investment in Canada, as it looks like Russia is getting. They're talking about more like larger bomb. The OBS is what I. This huge bomb. It blows up into 6, and it can be nuclear. But this is huge, and he's getting ready to use these things after the very successful drone attacks. The largest drone producer in the world is Ukraine right now. They're producing a lot of these things, and they're not very big. And they're now being able to launch within Russia. So they have special forces, sneaky squirrels, I like to call them. Sneaky squirrels that have infiltrated the country, and there's probably 100,000 of these drones across the country that they're not going to be able to get until they're in the air, right? They're just they'll have to just unbelievable amounts of policing to find this. It's not going to happen. So it's like, and it looks like they've probably been set up in the last few years, even maybe 5 years, like years back. Or not 5, but they've been set up in the last couple of years. So it's not like. So as that goes on, if this escalates, all of that talk is the Europeans' problem. Didn't mean to talk about it. Russia will be more isolated. No one in the West will be able to buy any of their products, and they are the number one. And we're number 2. I think we'll be, after this potash mines and stuff in Saskatchewan, we'll be the number 1 potash producer. And potash is needed very heavily in modern agriculture. So, any Western country who wants to have their own farming, and as if we get more of a dangerous world, more countries will be focusing on food within the borders. And as the South expands, as Asia expands, China has an unlimited deal. They have an unlimited friendship, unlimited absolute power friendship that they've signed, and it's basically they says we'll take all of your potash, we'll take all of your ore, we'll take most of your grain, and so that is continuing to be a weave. So China looks most likely in the future will be absorbing all of the production out of Russia for potash, leaving the West very, very. Russia, of course, will have shadow ships and stuff like that. We'll see how long that lasts. Well, shadow ships selling their potash around the world, but our potash is going to be very, very, very valuable, and the production we won't be able to produce enough. It's my guess, and my guess from looking at think tanks.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, PJ, just to interrupt. I just want to put a fine point on what my colleagues have said here. It's a generational opportunity for Canadians, but it's also a generational opportunity for some of the poorest communities in our country. And if we have a window of opportunity to build up Canada, and we can get more kids tied into an education, to a pathway to trades, to college, to university, if we can put the road and transmission and pipe infrastructure to build out those opportunities, this country is not just going to be better off in terms of the GDP growth. We're going to be better off in terms of making sure that every Canadian kid can reach their full potential in this great country.
Yeah, I was just going to add as well that what an incredible moment that we're in. You look across this beautiful and very strong country of Canada, and that nation building had happened all the way from the East Coast right to the West Coast, and that hasn't quite met up to the North as well. So I'm very thankful for the incredible leadership of Prime Minister Carney, who really recognizes that there's incredible opportunities and that we actually have solutions to bring when we're looking at different corridors, access to critical minerals, access to create markets, whether it's to Asia or Europe, and to assert our sovereignty. You look to the North, and the infrastructure gap between North and South is something that I think we're all taking note. And that this is our moment as a country. We're unified around wanting to see us prosper and to become stronger to come out of it, and very much look forward to seeing actual infrastructure built to ensure that our communities are healthy. And that's how you best assert your sovereignty, is by how healthy your communities are.
I like this, PJ. He and someone was commenting before. Oh well, he's not this. When he speaks in his I guess still we say it mother tongue. Akanikog. I'm trying. I try my damnedest. I know that there's the one lady up there in the NDP. She does it. She said, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to make fun of it. I'm just not good. And sorry, I'm just looking up. Of course he's married. You can't get in. He's an avid harvester who enjoys his time on the land. Oh, they're hunters up there. They're hunters, like, way better than most of us by far. They know how to hunt. They're, like, unbelievable. Unbelievable respect. Even the writing, it's like, it's tough. It's hard. Okay, I'm just trying to... He was raised in Greece Fjord. His aunt was an MLA. Inuk. So he's an Inuk. I just wanted to make sure I was saying. I was going to say another. This is something that is really, I believe, I failed, never failed any class in my life, but I failed by not looking enough into our culture. But I believe it also is our nation when I was growing up. I'm old, so but with elementary and high school, especially high school, we should have been taught more about the cultures of our Arctic, of our northern, of the people of the country. It's like all I learned was Europe because it was kind of like, you know what I mean, majority of the people around. But now, going forward, the Inuk people, and I just when someone says something, and I like to play with it, when someone says something about this and that accent stuff, like try to speak Inuk. It is freaking hard. It is and then they have long words. It's not like, you know what I mean. It's like the Germans. You know, Germans love their compound words. Oh yeah, Inuk do as well. They love their compound word. And so just that language, the amount of being able to say that in so long, that shows that there's genius in whoever created it, right? You know, back in time, just like, you know, Dante created French or Italian and stuff like that. But it shows, and it's very difficult. It's awesome, but we don't hear much about it, and we don't practice it. So that's why I don't want to go too. I'm timid. I'll be honest. I'm timid on people think, well, he's making fun. No. I'm just mangling because I'm not good at it, and I'm practicing on camera. But I think that going forward, this is what he said. It's nation building. It's weaving the nations. We haven't helped the Arctic. I don't want to say helped. We haven't weaved the Arctic in with large infrastructure projects. They're using diesel to power their cities. We got transmission lines that we need up there, like there should be, or power plants. We've done it to the south. Why aren't we doing it to the north? I think we should first of all stop calling them territories and start calling them provinces. Just calling them, and whatever the hell the legislation behind it, I don't care. Let the legislation go slow as snails as it has. It has to do with them not having a seat member. I don't care. I don't want to hear a territory up there anymore. And personally, it actually aggravates me. And I always did, even when I was a young lad. I was like, why the territory? Are they not Canadians? Oh, it's because they don't have a seat. So some technical thing, and we're going to call them a territory. That to me sounds like the other C word, which I won't even speak it. But I think call it a province. None of it's a province. Northwest Territories should be the Northwest Province, and Yukon Province, of course. And you know, actually I believe Yukon is now a province because they have the. I'm not sure. I may be wrong. I see. This is my ignorance, and that's my own fault. But I know that it took political will to separate Northwest Territories from Iqaluit and Nunavut, right? It took political will. So why don't they have a seat at the table? Why don't they have a senator? Why don't we call them a province? He's the premier of Nunavut. They have a really cool building too. Their building, MLA Incubant. Maybe they are a province. He's independent. Member of Legislative Assembly of Nunavut for Iqaluit. So he's right from the heart. He's a city. Well, he's Niakungu. Yeah, so this is I think he's an outstanding thing. Premier of Nunavut. So I don't know. Is Nunavut now a province? Considered a province? I'm gonna have to ask Google. This is how awful I am. I'm hoping it's a province. No, none of it is not considered a province of Canada. It is one of Canada's Canada's 3 territories, so Yukon isn't as well. 3 territories along the Northwest Territories and the Yukon. Territories have a different relationship with the federal government than provinces do, with more federal oversight and control over their affairs. I think it's time. Okay, I mean, I know I repeat myself because I try to make my points, and I know no one's listening. I'm working for me itself, and I know I see my stuff gets out there. It gets into the ether. But we need to call them provinces. I don't care about the legislative differences between this and that. Call them a province first, and that shows a shine of instant sign, not shine. It gives a shine too, but it gives it a good shine of respect. It's just respect. Okay, you're now a province. Okay, you're a province, and now every year there should be meetings. How do we make you fully integrated province, right? More of your own legislative controls, right? Of your own place. Like up they say like they don't control their own liquors and stuff like that. All kinds of weird stuff goes on that we would never accept in our places. So I just think that it's the federal, because they have low populations, it's very hard to maintain. So yes, they will need a lot of federal assistance and stuff like that. But I think it's time to start handing over the reins from the reindeers. I don't know, the reins every year incrementally to these places this is how you first of all weave the country together. You give them enough power to have and then, of course, you have to have infrastructure projects with it. But I don't want to repeat it a third time or a fourth.
We'll have time for one last question. Dernière question.
Phil Tank, Saskatoon Star Phoenix. I wanted to ask Premiers Moe and Smith whether they share Premier Ford's enthusiasm about this new, what seems to be like a new relationship with the federal government.
I can go, and yes. I think we do have an opportunity here, and as I spoke to some of the the generational opportunities that I think not just in the corridor that I spoke to specifically, but the conversation around really aspiring to a greater economic future than maybe what we've had in the last number of years. And Phil, we've been very much a growth-focused government here within the province of Saskatchewan. And I see some of that growth, a balanced focus on that growth nationally. And we applaud that. And we, as you know, the last number of weeks and months, I think it's fair to say that we as a government are putting forward our best foot to give every opportunity to work alongside the federal government, look to work alongside other provinces and other Canadians in order for us to achieve that. Because we support, in this province, we support the aspiration to grow our economy to lead the G7. And we want to be part of that, and we believe we can be a big part of that in Saskatchewan. We support the aspiration for Canada to become a global energy superpower, and that means we are going to have discussions, some of them, not all of them easy, but have the discussions about advancing all of the energy products that we have and all the natural resources essentially that we have in a sustainable way and in an inclusive way. We've always supported that, and we continue to support that today. And so I would say in the meetings that I've had, whether they be First Ministers meetings, Council of Federation meetings over the last 7.5 years, that today was a very positive meeting, and I hope that Canadians would feel very positive with their provincial, territorial, and federal leaders coming out of here today in agreement on that.
I would say I'm encouraged by the immediate change of tone that we've seen from recent months. I think that there's when we hear the Prime Minister talking about being an energy superpower, we haven't heard that kind of language for some time on both conventional and clean power. And I think that the fact that we've quantified that we've got 1.8 trillion barrels of oil, bitumen, and about 165 billion barrels is recoverable at today's technology, even at $60 oil, that's a $9 trillion asset. And you simply wouldn't have a policy of leaving a $9 trillion asset in the ground when it can stand to benefit everyone. You have to address issues, of course, of Indigenous ownership and equity partnership. You have to address issues, of course, of emissions and other environmental issues. But that's what I heard, is how do we have an all-of-the-above approach? And I think that's very encouraging. So we're willing to work with the federal government on addressing some of the issues that are going to stand in the way of creating the environment for private investment. It doesn't help you to build a pipeline to the West Coast if there's a tanker ban. It becomes difficult to expand your natural gas market if you've got net zero power regs that are requiring it to be phased out by 2035. And you can't expand production if you have an emissions cap. So those are future conversations to be had about how we create that environment. But I think what I heard was that the Prime Minister wants to work on a dual track to be able to find some compromises on all of those, and I'm encouraged by that.
I noticed there's language about net zero electricity generation by 2050. Is that a mandate? Does that mean that the federal government is going to say you have to reach net zero by 2050, or it doesn't say that specifically, but I'm just curious, whether there's consensus on that? Well, I know there's premiers that don't agree with that.
Well, we have policy in Alberta that has set a target of being carbon neutral by 2050. My grievance with the previous Prime Minister is that he was trying to advance that to 2030 and 2035, which was unachievable. So if we can work towards a 2050 target, I do know that the power producers in my province are looking at that as a potentially achievable target. When you look at carbon capture, utilization, and storage, the opportunity for nuclear, both conventional as well as small scale, and the conversation that we're now having about interties, that we might be able to bring in hydroelectric power. So 2050 has been a target that our province has set out.
Yeah, there's a number of aspects at play here with respect to, how much power are we going to need in the next couple of decades in each of our respective jurisdictions, where that power is going to come from. We're having a very, active conversation in finding our way through the nuclear regulatory process here in Saskatchewan. As we look ahead over the next 10, 15, and 20 years, we've talked actively about aspiring and targeting a 2050 net zero timeline, but we're also focused on the affordability and reliability of power that we're providing to not only industries, but to families and people that live here in Saskatchewan. And so there's much is part of that conversation as we move forward. You're hearing the energy dominance conversation south of the border. Those are focused on powering data centers, essentially, moving forward. So Canada is going to be part of that increase in electricity demand, that increase in energy demand, and that's why I'm encouraged by the conversations that we're all able to have here today with respect to becoming that global energy superpower, but doing so by looking at all of the energy sources that we have, and that's what we're doing in Saskatchewan as well, but always with a mind of being environmentally sustainable and a lower carbon footprint in the future than what you have today.
This is a generational opportunity. I can't remember that everyone's sitting around the table with a willing partner from the federal government, willing partners from 13 premiers. And do you know who the biggest willing partner is right now? Are the people of Canada. They want to move. And do you know who's responsible for doing that? Is President Trump. When our country comes under attack from President Trump, we unite, and we're a resilient country. And everyone realizes that if we don't move, we'll be left behind. And the consequences will be 10 times worse if we just sit back and do absolutely nothing. I describe Canada, and excuse the pun, as a big, huge gold mine. Now we have to start mining the gold, getting it out there. And no matter if it's the energy corridors being, as you've heard many of us say, being an energy superpower around the world, be it oil and gas, or be it nuclear energy and small modular reactors that we're leading the G7, that's what we need to do. We need to unleash. And as Premier Smith said, we have to create the environment and the conditions for companies to come here and invest. If we continue putting red tape and regulations and high taxes, guess what? No one's going to come and invest. But we're all confident, and I'm confident with the leadership of the Prime Minister that he's creating that environment and conditions for people to come here and companies to come here and invest and tell the world Canada's open for business. I'll leave you with this. United we stand, divided we fall. And I can tell you we're a united group. I'll pass it over to you, Prime Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. Thank you all to all the premiers and your teams for all the effort. Sometimes you don't know what you have until you've lost it. We're fortunate. We haven't lost anything. We were threatened, and the Canadian people stood up to the Americans. We know what we have, and now we're going to build on it. Taking matters absolutely in our control. We're united. We're going to build together, and we're going to build for all. We're going to build for all Canadians. That's what came out of this meeting. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank
wait, did I hit it right? I think he's done a good job as Premier. Prime Minister. I think that I think he's got the premiers for the first time. Like usually they're walking out of there like herded kittens. Just ain't happening. Each one of them is going off their own direction. This time, I see even a subdued Danielle Smith, who, Alberta politics as it stands right now is basically hate the rest of the country as much as possible. Saskatchewan, they just don't talk about, and Manitoba, not realizing, you know what I mean. It's just the politics part of it. It's just, right? British Columbia has the oil tanker ban, and it is not changing. But it helps. She brought it up because it helps her politically. It's, you know what I mean? There's such a sentiment in Alberta for oil only, and it works in the politics right now. And it has to do with also the oil money there's a lot of oil money in politics in Alberta right now, and so this is a part of it. If your paycheck or your bonus paycheck is dependent on the oil, well, yeah, of course. So it is about it. I think it could just quiet that whole thing up with the with allowing a quick corridor to Manitoba. I don't know about this Grays Bay, but to Manitoba. But trying to change another province's populace into buying into the oil industry. The oil industry is not a clean industry. It's not, you know what I mean? There's other ways of getting power. If that was all we had, I would totally be on board. Like I said, I'm not a total anti-oil person. But it's not the power of the future, and spending political capital on it, I don't think is worth it. I don't think there's anything worth it. For an Albertan, Danielle Smith, in her defense, for me to give it for her, that's her political capital is based on. That's what remember, in Alberta, it's only about 25% of the income in Alberta. Now it could be bigger but remember, any politician's job is to make it. Oh, we could have trillions of dollars, and people have bought hook, line, and sinker. Oh, trillions. This Ottawa, you know what I mean? Come on, it ain't gonna happen. It won't be sold trillions and this and that. It could be if every star in the sky was like that Orion thing. They all spin together, and the world doesn't ever work that way. And pushing another province's politics for their politics is, to me, it's a misnomer when you have an easy route. And the easy road is to Manitoba. Those three provinces will do with it. I think that back to what my original statement, Mark Carney has done a pretty good job of, he beat me down, right? Of course I got beaten. I'm going to be monetized yet again. But you know what I mean, maybe I'm a hated person, so it worked for him politically. So he's got the basic unification of premiers. All it takes is, look for online slander, make up a fake movie, and you're good to go. Have the premiers talking about the same thing today, at least. They're all happy, unified. And they all seem happy. I like the way that Doug Ford put it. He's never seen it this way. this unified feeling, and he has a really good feeling. That's just very, very rare. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good job of prime ministering in his first month. And the conservatives, federal conservatives, don't have much to take away from this when their head, of the Alberta movement is basically saying, well, I'm happy about this. She only had a dig at Eby, right? And Eby's running a province that has different values. BC is totally different values than Alberta. It's just like surprising that they're neighbors. And one is like oil or nothing. But I believe it, to be honest, it has to do with because the oil industry is centered out of there. And there's a lot of money in politics, a lot of donations through the oil patch people. They're like the highly motivated folks in that country. They're the extreme right, but it's highly motivated in a specific industry, and that it bloats the truth. It makes it phony. The real truth about the amount of people in Alberta is not as big as it seems online and by the politicians and all that. It's just the money that's involved in politics, and that's part of the reason that I'm not a big believer in money in politics, keeping that as minimum. Stephen Harper, by the way, was the person who reduced it down to $10,000 by most. But in the States, there's a push to have entities vote. So entity, I mean, is corporations vote. This is not the way of the future. It's basically will lead them 10 times faster to communism, which no one really wants to see in this country. But Mark Carney is doing a really good job of basically giving everyone unifying and happy things to look at, and without having to spend any. He didn't spend any money today. He didn't spend any money, but he definitely opened up the doors for every province to have a seat at the table, a real seat at the table, it looks like, and they all seem happy. I hope going forward it works. I'm day by day become I'm more into the clean energy, but every day a little bit more, as I'm seeing the tactics played by old industry. And nuclear I put in that mix now, because now it's got these small modular reactors. I don't believe for a second that they'll be responsible in getting and sourcing. There'll probably be some of them, not all of them, but they'll be sourcing not all of it from beautiful Saskatchewan mines. They'll be sourcing it from other places that maybe, And then disposal. Disposal's 100,000 years. How can you allow? This is my thing: is how do you allow a company? Okay, if a company puts all the money forward, yeah, but why would we put any money of government money, which is people's money, into building something that most likely, if every company in history is an example, every single one that's closed down, they'll leave the mess behind. They won't clean up. I try to clean up. They won't. They'll be like, we're bankrupt. Don't talk to us about the mess, right? That, to me, is not what a politician should be putting the people's money into something that's guaranteed. When it comes to the end of that service, they'll be just walking away. And that whatever that company's name is, it won't be GE or a century-long company. It'll be a company name you only heard of for 20 years and walked away. Just like all of these, they have millions of wells in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba as well. That just companies, they just close up. And the reason why they closed up, the oil ran out, and they walked away. And now the government has to clean it. So, like I said, the more I look into power, source generation, and the technologies coming on quicker, Canada, we actually have, we had a spy in our hydro dams, Chinese spy, because the technology in our hydro dams is beyond others. So, it's pretty something to think about. We have the highest technology of it, and it doesn't pollute. It's actually sometimes makes lakes, which, helps make more fish and good stuff like that. Instead of an industry we already know is is destructive the way it works now. Now, if you include the hypothetical guarantee, it's a hypothetical guarantee that when these companies close down, Of course they will. When they run out of oil and wells, they close up. That's why it's all these little companies. They just leave the mess, and then the government has to pay for it. And that's what I mean. The tactics that are now being implemented to push the oil, this 51st state stuff, that's oil. That's oil money, oil filthy people. They'll make some bogus argument. This is like politics 101. They make a bogus argument to push the pot, to scare and push the populace to get an agenda across that otherwise is distasteful. Trump, stop talking about that. We are not need to worry about it. And what do they use? Well, Trump is the big person, the reason. Yeah, they have to use Trump. Well, Trump ain't going to talk about it really anymore. The election, he got his result. It's Carney. It's Pierre's out. Pierre said some bad words about the Don. That's it. It's over. We got Carney in, and it's this push of all that argument is to me distasteful politics. Though of course you use what works, and fear works on